I view Louis Carlucci to be a very invasive type of criminal. Basically, your typical criminals that Unsolved Mysteries likes to profile, they're pretty much, blunt weapons, basically. You can see them coming when you watch these cases. Louis Carlucci, I feel that he is even more horrendous than your common criminals because of one reason. He worms his way into the life of the people that he basically abuses. As of 1982, Louis Carlucci, and how invasive Louis Carlucci is to his wives. This was from his most current wife as of the recording of this episode. He was so insidious that she thought the only way for her to get away from him was to end her own life. I don't know about you, and I'll be honest, I don't believe in religion, but if you believe in religion, I'm pretty sure for a guy who is basically suck them dry of any sort of item that he desires and then to leave, I'm pretty sure there is a special place in hell for people like Louis Carlucci. Now, you also got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, it isn't just the fact that he married these ladies. That isn't bad enough. It's the fact that he has possibly over 30 children. 30 children who don't know who their father is. 30 children who may learn that they have 30 other brothers or sisters. Now, 30 is just a rough estimate. It could be even more. It could be more, it could be less. But the fact is, this guy has reproduced, and his children do not even know who their father is. But we are here to listen to this lady's tale of what happened with her when she met Louis Carlucci, and let's get to that right about now. Okay, let's get the video loaded up. And 3, 2, 1. The first thing I thought when I saw this is like New York City. It's like, oh my God, this city has to be cursed for having some of the worst people to have ever plagued that city. If I remember correctly, New York City was part of the domain where Son of Sam was, if I remember correctly. We had Louis Carlucci. We had the New York coin scam. See here, what else is there in New York City? There was the possible disappearance of Dr. Sneha Phillips, who disappeared the night before 9/11. Even though she was not a bad person, but it just seems like the way I should have said it was that New York seems to attract a lot of people that happens to end up on Unsolved Mysteries, basically.
New York City, 1981. Louis Carlucci arrived in the suburb of Forest Hills, carrying nothing but a garment bag with his one good suit in it. In this affluent community, he was a stranger, a man without a past. He found work as a short-order cook in a diner, but no one knew where he came from.
I always found it funny because what you don't see here is that there was, I think there was a help wanted sign in the window. And they always make it sound like you can always just go in and get a job when you see a help wanted sign. That's not really the case. You can go in and then they'll basically be like, fill out an application. And even if you do that, you may not get selected. But I always like it how they see, oh, there's a help wanted sign. Okay, I'll go in and get an instant job. It doesn't work like that.
In September 1981, Louis Carlucci met a 41-year-old woman whom we will call Barbara at a neighborhood bar.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
7 weeks later, he married her.
The power vested in me.
That is way too quick. That's way too quick. To me, I think you should know somebody for a couple years before you even consider tying the knot. 7 weeks, holy shit. What do you really know about the guy from only 7 weeks? you only at this point you only see like the surface character. You're not there with him 24 hours a day. You don't know what the person is like. 7 weeks. Oh God, like I, mm-mm, mm-mm.
What Barbara didn't know is that Louis Carlucci is a con man. He makes his living by stealing women's hearts and then their money.
And this is why I said that basically he is a very insidious type of criminal. Like I said, a lot of blue collar crimes, I guess you could say. A lot of those things you can kind of walk away from. You get your car stolen, yeah, that sucks. You get your tires slashed, yeah, that sucks. You can fix those things. You can get another car if need be. However, to marry somebody means that you open yourself up to that person to the point that you trust them and you love them enough to marry them, only for this guy to basically stab you in the back. That is a very, very emotional violation, in my opinion.
Carlucci is suspected of marrying at least 9 different wives and fathering over 30 children around the country.
Now, keep in mind, he never divorced any of them. Never divorced any of them. To him, I think to him, it's just like he views marriage as just like as a stepping stone, basically. First he gets their attention. He wines them. He dines them. He whispers, sweet nothings into their ears. Sooner or later they marry. He gets his claws around them. He gets their money, and then he's off. He doesn't view marriage like how a lot of other people do, which is something supposed to be special. To him, it's more just a tool in the long run, basically.
Said to have swindled his victims out of more than $1 million. Louis Carlucci is known as Con Juan, or the Heart Attacker.
Okay, so that image there said that he had possibly 35 kids.
When you try to explain to someone what happened, they look at you and say, well, how could you get taken like that? And then you find out there are 500 other people.
Okay, so this has been something that's come up in some of my earlier cases, basically. Anyway, the issue with your character, not your characters, your people being in silhouette. I normally do not like it because of the fact it hides too much, but I can relent and admit that sometimes it is a necessary evil, especially when the criminal is still out in the world. I can understand her being in silhouette and having her voice modulated because of the fact that Louis Carlucci, as of recording this, or this episode here, not this installment of Unsolved Mysteries commentary, but this episode of Unsolved Mysteries, he was still out in the wild. What's there to say that he would not have liked, he would not like her basically speaking out against him? It would have made her a target. It would have made her a target. But when you already have the criminal apprehended and serving time in prison, supposedly like the Michael Martin case, why are you still needing to hide yourself? I just don't understand that. I do not understand that at all.
People that were taken the same way, who were supposed to be as brilliant or smart.
Barbara was the only one of Carlucci's victims who would talk to us. She asked that she not be identified on camera, and at one time she feared reprisals from Carlucci.
But the fact that he's still roaming someplace in the United States.
Okay, so the woman that you're hearing talking right now is the same woman, or well, the same wife that basically went to end her life because she thought that living with not Michael, with Louis Carlucci was so destroying to her that basically she only viewed one way out. Yeah.
And getting away with this is terrible thought.
Barbara's telling her story tonight because she wants to warn other women about Louis Carlucci. The police are convinced that Carlucci is perpetrating the same con game on some unsuspecting woman at this very moment.
Oh, of course he is. The guy, that's it's like once you find your niche, you're never going to leave it. You're never going to leave it. Some people's niches are working, hard sweat inducing, 9 to 5 jobs. And then you have people like Louis Carlucci, whose niche is basically mentally, psychologically abused until you get everything you want and then you leave. That's his niche. Uh, I view this kind of thing like pedophiles and rapists and murderers. They're never going to change. They're never going to change. You cannot change these type of people once they've started what they do. You cannot rehabilitate them.
Tonight, we'll see exactly how Carlucci perpetrated his schemes, which the police call marriage swindles.
Carlucci usually finds his victims in restaurants and friendship clubs.
And that's where, even to this day, people who go to these type of these type of activities, they are still victims. There are always going to be people out there in the world who wants to make a quick buck. And instead of actually, working to get what they want, they feel that they are entitled to basically lie to people and, cheat and steal.
Excuse me. Hi.
I was out with a friend, and we were sitting and having a drink, and he sent over drinks, and got to talking, and that's how we first met.
I like to meet you all the time, and I know for a fact that I've never seen you in here before.
First impression when I first saw him, no style, no class.
And see, that's the thing. She should have stayed with that mentality. But he continued to work his way onto her, He continued to wrap his tentacles. If she just continued to think no class, no style, I think she would have been better off. But she let her guard down. And that's how these criminals, that's what they prefer. The minute you let your guard down, they pounce.
However, he was warm, very friendly, he had a good sense of humor. So I started dating him. I thought, well, he's a pretty nice guy. He told me he grew up in the Bronx, that he traveled a lot, that
She should have researched it. If a person truly loves you, they would not want to rush you to get married to them. They would understand if you want to take your time. Like the fact that this guy pushes and pushes and pushes, that should be a warning sign.
he was in the restaurant business, and he wanted to settle down, and that he could give me everything that anybody could really want. And I said, okay, the guy is pretty nice. I like him. I like his company.
Now, I wonder, did she ever do any research into him? Because he said he was in the restaurant business, making it sound like that he actually owns restaurants. If she did her research and she came across the fact that he got a job as a small order cook, that should kick off a warning. Yeah, he's working in a restaurant, but does it really sound like he's going to be making that much money when he says, oh, I'm in the restaurant business? It makes it sound like he is, more higher up, more affluent, basically.
And I thought, well, why not?
The power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may now kiss the bride.
After a whirlwind courtship lasting only 7 weeks, Barbara married Louis Carlucci in a small ceremony at the bar where they'd first met.
If I was Barbara's son, I would have told her, Mom, this guy does not seem trustworthy. He's pushing this way too hard. Open your eyes, Mom. Think about it. Why are you in such a rush to marry a guy you don't even know that well? And she'd probably say, well, he loves me. If he loves you, he can wait. He can fucking wait. This does not feel right. Something is not right with this guy. But then again, I'm not her son.
Immediately after the wedding, the relationship began to deteriorate.
Because he finally got what he wanted. It's that whole thing when he finally gets what he wants. He has like that open door. He has an open door, and then he switches modes where he can start to. He goes from, the loving persona that the loving persona. It's like oh god, the warm up phase. Once he gets, once he gets into her, her home and everything. Once he gets married, then he switches to a whole new method of doing what he does.
He kind of jumped on me for talking to other people at the wedding, and he got very angry about the idea, possibly that we even got married.
It's his way of breaking down his victims. What you're seeing here is like the mask is slipping. Basically, the reason he jumped on her is because it isn't so much because he loves her, because he doesn't. He views these ladies that he marries as simply the end of the con, basically. But he still did not get what he wants yet at this point. He gets upset because he's worried that if they start talking to other guys, they may start either helping her open her eyes, or she may actually realize that she doesn't have feelings for this guy and dump him before he can actually get what he wants, which is their money. He needs to keep them isolated. Basically, he needs to keep them isolated in order for him to do what he does. You can't break a person down psychologically if you're allowing them to, have a normal life.
After the honeymoon, they moved into an unfurnished apartment in New York, where they lived out of suitcases. Carlucci would not let Barbara out of his sight and paid for their living expenses with Barbara's credit cards.
The change in his attitude and his personality shocked me, because there were times when he was real nice, and then all.
And see, the thing is, you can still tell from what she's saying. She's still a little bit, under his control, basically. She acknowledges what happened, but she's still willing to say, there were times he was still nice. He was only nice because he was sowing the deception, basically.
All of a sudden he'd flip, and it would be like black and white. Jekyll and Hyde, I don't know how you want to put it. And then I got scared. I really got scared.
I gotta give them credit. The actor who played Louis Carlucci, he really makes me want to not like him. I understand that this is just an actor and everything, but the way that this actor is just carrying himself, I'm wondering if he's like a method actor. Like I can imagine what it was like for when they were compiling the evidence and everything, the testimonies and whatnot for this case, and they were hiring the actors to play these roles. They hired the actor who played Louis Carlucci, and the actor's like, okay, what would you like me to do? And they're like, portray a guy who basically is a con man, who basically kind of psychologically abuses his wives, and he just went with that. Oh my god, this guy did a great job at acting like how Louis Carlucci could have been.
Because I realized that aside from the fact that, I didn't have what he thought I had, which was money, the man was very physical.
Ever pull that again?
I couldn't turn my head. He'd pull my hair. If I looked the wrong way, I'd get smacked. Of course, I couldn't talk to anyone at all. I mean, if we were in a restaurant, I couldn't even order anything from the waitress, because he felt like I was looking at the person to signal or whatever.
Can I get you some dessert?
No, thank you. Just a check.
Man?
This shit, I'm pretty sure with social media the way it is now, I'm pretty sure shit like this would not really happen that often, because the minute, like, say that woman who's sitting behind them at that table back there behind Louis Carlucci and Barbara, I'm pretty sure that if that happened today, and that, that they overheard Louis Carlucci basically kind of berating Barbara, that lady would have been, or the guy with her could have been possibly on their phone in a hot New York minute, I guess you could say. And they'd be on whatever social media platform they're on. They would, they would say, hey, this guy is, treating his wife or girlfriend poorly. He's berating her. He's talking trash to her. And they'd probably even be able to snap a picture or two. That picture would get on the internet, and before Louis Carlucci would know it, everybody within that city block possibly would have at least had some sort of announcement of who this guy is, because everything spreads quickly on social media.
Just the check.
Carlucci continued to put the bite on Barbara. He used her credit cards up to their limit.
I mean, and he does that, without it even being like second nature. Yeah, I know that this is an actor and everything, but this is from testimony that Barbara gave the producers. And they make it look like Louis, he didn't even fucking care. It's just like, oh, you got money. Well, my money now, And ask yourself, what kind of man does that to his wife? That, that he just reaches over and grabs her purse. To me, granted, I'm not in a relationship or anything, but to me, isn't a purse supposed to be something that's kind of private to a woman? That's supposed to be like their personal space. For him to go over and grab the purse like that, that's just like an utter like violation. It's even like a lack of respect, if you ask me.
Emptied her bank account, and when they went out together, he always used Barbara's money. Carlucci bled Barbara dry.
I was just held captive, let's put it that way, for about 6 months. Did never let me out of his sight, not one time. I couldn't go to the bathroom without him being there. So I had no way of trying to contact anyone or telling anyone about anything.
Okay, this is where the scene comes up where that you can actually see her getting the razor blade, basically, that I use for the image behind me. Like I said, that tells you how defeated Barbara was, for her to feel that the only way out of this situation was to end her own life. That tells you how bad it must have been.
He caught me with the razor. I was going to cut my wrist because that was the only way I could get out. He knew that I was going to die, whether I did it myself or I would just waste away and die.
And ultimately, he didn't care. He didn't care. If anything, I feel that he would probably thought that if she died, it'd be a little bit easier for him just to walk away.
So his reaction was, well, I may as well let you go because you're going to die.
On May 13th, 1982, almost 6 months after their wedding, Louis Carlucci left Barbara, having squandered all of her savings, a total of $20,000.
Now, he burned through the $20,000 within 6 months. If she had more money, I'm pretty sure he would have been there even longer.
Encouraged by her friends, Barbara filed charges with the police.
When Barbara first came to us and gave us information about Carlucci, we started our investigation and began to talking to quite a few people. To speak to these women was an eye-opener for me. Carlucci doesn't just leave physical and financial wreckage behind him. It's kind of a psychological scarring that...
And that's what I was kind of saying. It's psychological, it's emotional. The guy's like a vampire. He's like a vampire. He will consume what it is that he feels that that he needs, which is their money, and then he leaves, and what's left is basically a husk.
You see. And how long was it between the time you were in... They feel embarrassed and ashamed, and they don't want their relatives and friends and co-workers to know about it.
I would like to see this man get caught. He doesn't belong out in society. And whether he'll hurt anybody very physically, I don't know. But he definitely has to be taken off the streets.
He travels all over. We've had him in California, Las Vegas, New Orleans, Florida, New Jersey, New York State. He moves around quite a bit. He's wanted for bigamy, grand larceny, and fraud. I'd be very surprised if at this moment Carlucci was not with a woman.
Oh, I'd make you a bet that he probably has a written list of females that he was targeting. Not that he was already with, but let's say that, he goes to a club in, let's say, Los Angeles, and he learns the names of all these females. He picks, that first name is the one that he's already going to work on. Once he's basically, he's claimed everything from that, that first victim, he just goes to the next name on that list, and then the next name and the next name. It isn't like, I don't think this guy, he just operates in the moment. I think he plans everything out. He gets a list of names, and then once that list is totally empty, then he goes to another area where the hunting grounds are basically kind of fresh. So he'll go from like Los Angeles to Seattle, and then from Seattle to, let's say, to New Orleans. Yeah, I don't think he does anything on the fly. I think he plans everything out to the letter, basically.
I'm sure he's been dealing with maybe 10 or 15 women a year, at the very least, because he's not going to stop what he's doing. This is the way he makes his living.
And this goes back to what I said before, I work in education. My neighbor, he works in the grocery industry. Let's see here. Who else do I know? My friend who lives in Spokane, his name was Aaron. He is a counselor, so, there are people who work normal 9 to 5 jobs. And then you have Louis Carlucci, who basically his career is basically targeting, females and bleeding them dry.
Louis Carlucci has a dubious distinction of being captured twice, thanks to viewers' tips.
So apparently he's smart enough to do what he does to females. He's learned to do what he does. And when I say smart enough, I don't mean that in a good term. Like, he's mastered his craft. But apparently he's not smart enough to not get captured.
After we first broadcast Carlucci's story, he was arrested in Nashville, Tennessee. He was extradited back to New York and later released on $1,000 bail pending trial. Once again, Carlucci disappeared. And once again, after we featured him on a second broadcast, a viewer's tip led to his...
You would think that this idiot, he would have been like, oh shit, people are actually starting to catch on. Maybe I should stop doing what I'm doing. But then again, like I said, when this guy has been, it's like it's ingrained in him. It's part of who he is at this point. And this is why I say criminals cannot really be that rehabilitated at all, because it's already part of who they are.
Arrest, this time in Los Angeles.
Okay, here, let's do this. Okay, after serving 4 years in prison, Louis Carlucci was released to supervised custody. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This guy who married 9, if not more, wives, who left them without divorcing them, who has over 30 kids, only served 4 years in prison. 4 years in prison. Oh no, Jeff. Oh no, Jeff. The justice system is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with the justice system at all, Jeff. Really? Because this case here kind of says otherwise.
In a moment, the story of a quiet church-going housewife who's accused of helping a convicted murderer escape from prison.
And this case, If I was to say that there is what case out of season 1, episode 3 pissed me off the most, it's going to be this upcoming case, the case of John Yount. Okay, it is time for me to go to the Unsolved Mysteries wiki, where I will look up the case, and I'm just going to do a quick update to see if there's been anything new. We already know that he was captured and he served 4 years. Wow, he really learned his lesson, didn't he? Okay, so Louis Carlucci, alias was Louis Carl, Louis Rizzo, Louis Martin, and Louis Dorset. Wow, he really liked that first name, Louis, didn't he? He was wanted for fraud, grand larceny, bigamy. He was missing since May 13th, 1982. Okay, let's scroll down. Extra notes. This case first aired on the May 18th, 1988 special number 7 of Unsolved Mysteries. It was updated on the October 5th, 1988 and March 15th, 1989. And the November 1st, 1989 episodes. Wow, this guy got a lot of coverage. Detailing his initial arrest, subsequent escape. They didn't mention escape that I can recall. 4 years. That's enough for a guy who was captured and then he escaped. And rearrest, respectively. It was later reprofiled on Dennis Farina hosted November 4th, 2008 and November 19th, 2008 episodes. Barbara was the only one of Carlucci's victims who would agree to be interviewed. She asked not to be identified on camera. At one time, she feared reprisals from Carlucci. Carlucci has a dubious distinction of being captured twice, thanks to viewers' tips. Like I said, he was smart enough to do what he did. You know, he learned how to manipulate people. Yet he wasn't fucking smart enough to finally stop when he was ahead. You know. Some of sources say Carlucci married between 35 women and fathered at least 35 children, and lists one of his aliases as Louis Serra. Okay, we already know that he was captured. I'm just going to kind of scroll down towards the end because that's where they basically have the most information. And let's see here. In May 1994, Carlucci was brought to Nebraska to face new wire fraud charges. The charges against Crane. Okay, I don't know who Crane is, but I'm not going to try. I'm not going to look it over. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison in order to pay back almost $60,000. In January 2001, he was released from federal prison. According to one of his biological sons, Carlucci passed away in 2005. And if he did, good. I don't feel bad that a criminal passed away. Why should I feel bad that this guy passed away after he treated at least 9 ladies? He treated them as poorly as he did. Why the fuck should I, or why the fuck should any of you feel bad that this piece of shit passed away? And I'll be honest, you shouldn't. I don't. Am I going to go to bed tonight and go, oh my God, he passed away in 2005. I hope he went nicely into the afterlife. I hope he had a sweet, peaceful death. No, I hope the guy fucking died. I hope that he was dying of some fucking form of cancer where he was just screaming in pain and agony. Because I'm pretty sure that a lot of his victims were feeling the same fucking way. And he didn't feel a goddamn bit pity for them. He didn't feel any remorse or sorrow. So why should I feel remorse, pity, or sorrow for him? Okay, and that is it. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the case of Louis Carlucci. A scumball, if you asked me, like I said, this guy, he wasn't your standard fraud type criminal. This guy was insidious. He would work his way into their hearts only to bleed them dry like a monetary vampire. And then he would move on. No remorse at all. No compassion at all. Okay. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on, let me get my camera on. Yeah, okay, we'll go with that. There you go. Wow, what an installment, huh? Basically, we learned of Louis Carlucci, who was a serial criminal. He was a very deplorable type of person. Basically, he would manipulate the people that thought he cared about them into a position where they had no choice at freedom. And they stay safe, everybody. Peace out.